Good evening. My name is Jessica Scott Dunn, and I'm here to talk about my research into the Voynich Manuscript. The Voynich Manuscript is an early 15th century astro-botanical herbal written in an unknown script. Attempts to decipher it have been unsuccessful for the past 600 years. The unknown script is now decoded fully, obviously not including a few outliers, but for the most part fully. The script is basically a highly redacted medieval Latin script. However, it is customized in that it plays on the issue of minims, where it's difficult to differentiate between certain letters. And so he used this to his advantage to quote-unquote cipher the manuscript. It's not a cipher in the classical sense, involving math in any way, or brute force. However, it's a linguistic one, and it's just as intriguing and a genius way of doing this, which he learned while on his travels to the Far East. Excuse me. And so this type of secret cipher of using language is very layered in the way he does it, and that is a Tibetan form of language construction. So context is what enables the reader to figure out what it means. Alright, so here we have folio 1R. We're not going to talk about that today. We are going to talk about the most up-to-date research, and that is the translation of the entirety of the Primus section, the first section. Okay, and so here we have the latest information concerning the Primus ordinal. You're probably wondering what that is, and that's okay. So the Primus ordinal, I apologize, I forgot to type in Yale. The Primus ordinal is on folio 9 verso of Mourning Widow, Kleinia Abyssinica. And basically he is marking the end of I'm sorry, did I say 9 verse 8v? He is marking the end of the Primus section. So this word here is an abbreviation for Primus. This is a P with a macron, pre, and then mus, M, and then a 9 for US. So he marks the end of each section with the ordinal pagination. So this is the very end. This is Mourning Widow, Kleinia Abyssinica, all the way back to the olive tree on 1 verso. So I think, and this was me included, that you kind of assume that each page, the text is going to be about each plant on each page, right? So here we'd have the olive tree, it's going to be completely about the olive tree. Then we have knapweed, lotus, Catha edulis here, peony orchid, bladder campion, Nigella sativa or black cumin. This is mango, mangofera indica. This is Menthus plicata or mint, and then Himalayan balsam. This is globe thistle or Echinopsis retro. This is cordyline fruticosa or Thai plant. This is wintergreen, Gaultheria, I believe. This is Hedera nepalensis, just ivy, but I also think it's a conflation of Tinospora. And here we go, morning widow. So you would expect the text to be about each plant, but it actually is not. I'm not entirely surprised by this, just because how in-depth Sour Rigpa and Tibetan Kalachakra or Tibetan Buddhist Kalachakra is. So yes, so let's get into all of the translations of all of these pages. So I'm going to read the context, because that's important, right? The context on how to read this, because I can go ahead and read every little passage, right? The Latin and then the English. However, it doesn't do it justice without the context of how he's using these words. Give me 1 second. I apologize. Hey, Jackie. How you doing? Thank you for showing up again. I appreciate it. Okay, so the Curatorium Primus is my most recent paper. So, and it's quite a bit of context. So I've wrote quite a bit of editorial notes at the bottom here. These are all of the newest, and I say newest because I have the previous, Folio 25R, huh? I'm actually coming out with a coffee brand based on Folio 25R in the next few days. And the first one will be an Ethiopian blend. All right, excuse me. So here are the new abbreviations, and not all of them are new. I say new in the sense this is the first time I've encountered them, simply because I started the Primus translation and decipherment last out of everything I've done, right? It's the most recent paper I've done, so excuse me. All right, so here we have opus. This is secundus. It literally is the same morphology as fecundus. Thank you. Awesome. Thank you so much. Here we have UN for via nobilis, the noble path. It's in genitive form. This is occulto, not occasio. Occulto, considering the context. This is continuo. Chorus for wind. I was wondering why I hadn't found the word for wind yet, but here it is. Chorus. Got comites. The things you prepare, right? In other words, the preparations. You can translate it that way as well. Avesis, sign or omen. In this context, it is not bird. Orium is golden. It seems like, even though it's discussing golden on folio 2V of knapweed, it's not just referencing the color of the flower. I think it's actually talking about the process in which the humors are the most dominant and affected by the sun. Hence, they are golden. Animum. Basically, you, instead of saying spiritus, in this instance, it's like the cause of animation, right? I believe, and I have not been able to find this definitively, but I'm inkling that it is the term he's using for self-awareness. Because he does use the word spiritus elsewhere. In this instance, it's animum. The word certi for garland or chain. In Tibetan Buddhism, a garland is represented by mala beads, referencing the causal chain of karma, right? O is the typical motto. Everyone knows that one. ICC, and I put the hyphen here to represent the connecting C to the other C. ICC 9 for oxyduous. All cases of this, of occidentis and assiduous, it's not to simply mean west or western. Rather, he's using this term to represent the setting of the sun or the moon, depending, right? So he's using the directional implication to represent setting instead of actually using an abbreviation for setting, for the Latin word for setting. Just like, for example, on the same note, ort, rising, also means east. In Latin specifically, and that's because the sun rises in the east. Here we have OCC, here we got occidentus. Qua is within, wherein, where, or as. Laboro is I labor, but it also means the labor. That's how he's using it. You'll see creati orum. I had been translating as two separate words, creati, then orum, H-O-R-U-M, but then I realized he wasn't talking about it in that way, simply because I found the word folio in front of it. So whenever he has the word folio and then a noun right after that, he's talking about a page, a certain section of pages. Ordinat, orders, governs, determines, arranges, establishes. That's literally all the word choices you can use for that. Ordinalis is very straightforward. It means the ordinals, literally talking about the ordinal pagination. Primus, secundus, tertius, quartus, so on and so forth, up to 20. He does leave out ordinal page number 13, 16, and 18, because from a Tibetan perspective, those numbers are auspicious and represent completeness of enlightenment. And so, of course, he would not include those because, well, it's the process, the procedure is not completed. So he wouldn't use those numbers. Celsi is always going to be translated as heavens, heavenly, or heights. He uses different forms of heights, and they all have different meanings as well. But in this sense, it's of the heavens of some sort. Here we have Ort Aster. It means the rising star or the risen star. Okay, the confusion on this is that not only does it mean rising star, but it also means birth star, a patient's birth star. When he's talking about Ort Aster Amene, he's talking about the rising star at dawn. So the morning rising star is the sun, right? I originally thought it might have been Venus, but not. I no longer believe that. So in that context, Ort Aster would be just typically the rising star, the rising sun. Also we have Ort, it can also mean rising origin, birth, or spring. Ort Ani means the rising year, or birth date. I think more often than not it means birth date, or birth year, but he's using it as birth date. Take your time, Jackie. No rush. Again, here's Ani, year, but may also mean date, just as Oris means time. And then Sumerum is dominant, of the highest, or the most exalted. Two new reference pages are Folio Opus and Folio Viae Nobilis. So the page of this, like the stages, and the page of the noble path. And of course, you can look up these in Capelli's lexicon, Abbreviaturarum. They are there. There is Vir Nobilis for you in Capelli's lexicon. However, considering the context of what I'm researching, the page of the noble man was less likely. So noble path makes more sense because of the context of Tibetan Buddhism. I know we got to get all the boring stuff out the way, but it helps, I promise. Okay, we've already discussed that the folios, the herbal section, they are not plant specific, okay? It's not a monograph about each plant. It's actually the specifics and generalization of the process. So from seed to oil to electuary to elixir. Here's another point that I had just snapped into place. And that is his use of the word ecclesia, which typically would mean the church, right? But the original meaning just means assembly. So in this context, when he says ecclesia, he's talking about a group or an assemblage of things. And it's always in reference to the stars, the assembly of stars. And he's actually naming two of the folios. So, and I'll show you in just a second. So here we have Ecclesia Occidentis Aster, okay? The assembly of the setting star. And then there's another phrase, Ecclesia Ort Aster, the assembly of the rising star. Go down to the Codex Constellarium Aster and look at those folios. Interestingly enough, I had named these tables on this folio the sunrise and moonrise tables, because if you look at the color, you can tell which one is setting and which one is not. So this is literally the pages that he's talking about. The Ecclesia, this one is the Ecclesia Ort Aster, okay, the rising sun the rising star. He uses blue to represent that this one is under the horizon. It is gone. It is asleep. And so these are the ecclesia, the assembly of stars, when the sun is up. This is the ecclesia occidentis Aster, right? The setting star. The sun is down here, below the horizon. So these are the two pages that are being referenced in the Primus section. Now, there is, and this of course is what makes decipherment difficult for me. Not impossible, just difficult. It takes the longest. There is hoc cui, which would be represented by O, and then I'm going to say C-C, so that you understand the difference. So we have hoc cui, right? It's literally the same exact symbol set, but if they're spaced apart, it's hoc cui. If they are close together, it is occidentis. Yes, I know, frustrating. I'll give you an example in a minute. Actually, I won't, because that means I'll have to find it, and it'll take me a little bit. So, all right. So, scribal omissions, okay? He does use est and sunt. However, he does imply these, like using est and sunt sometimes are implied implicitly. So he doesn't have to actually state est or sunt again. It's just assumed. Also, cui and cuius and cuiorum, as well as hoc, haec, hunc, hic. Those are singular. So he uses orum for the plural, and then cuiorum for plural, or cuius. But what makes it more difficult is that in these instances here, these are being used for by which, by whose, to whom, for whom, from whom, through, just so many different variations of those expressions. And that's another difficulty. For example, he uses cuiorum 4 times in a row on one page. Just 4 times in a row. And I'm thinking to myself, why? Why? And so I had to go through every meaning of cuiorum that he's using through the whole thing to try to figure out which one it is. Because what's the point of saying 4 cuiorums back to back? So to make things easier, I have included is and it is in brackets in the English translation when that's implied. Again, talking about the case collapse. He does it with elo, he does it with hoc and all cui forms. He'll also leave out the subject when it's already been discussed in the previous clause, or even sentence. He'll leave it out. So I put it in brackets here and there to kind of make it easier to keep track of what's being said. Here we have, and it's a Germanic syntax. He puts esse in front of essoniare. Typically this would be to be excused, right? To be excused, but it also means to be released in that sense, and that's how he's using it. you'll see the word creati all of the time. This means created. And he uses this as a procedural indicator. When he says created humor, creati aqua, it means he's already done that process. He's already completed the humor, like figuring out what the humor is for that patient. And then you'll see it for like creati aster. He's already figured out the star, the fixed star of the patient. So that's how he references the completion of those processes. Okay, so now that we have the context out of the way, oh, section headers. I didn't discuss that. Let me do that really quick. This is an interesting thing that I have figured out. And when you look in manuscripts, or even just in general modern books, you have section headers, right? This is a section header itself. At the beginning of the sentence, that's the section header. So he doesn't put the section header and then a space and then a paragraph. He runs it all together. For example, capitulum hoc, right? The chapter, this order, this book. It's always with hic at the end. And remember, in our manuscript, right, hoc is every case included. So you just are supposed to know which case it's supposed to be. So ours is going to be folio hoc, even though it means folio hic. Okay. He keeps that uniformly pretty much across every folio in the Primus section in some form or the other. Alright, so now we get into the fun stuff. Now, I do not have the smoother implied translation yet, but bear with me. And that's why this is difficult, because it is choppy. It's meant to be choppy, but it's also meant to be where you can understand it still. So there's a literal translation and then a smooth implied translation. Okay, this is the folio of the olive tree. I'll show that really quickly here, since I don't have it up there. I'll probably end up including it at some point. Okay, this is the folio in question. This is where we're beginning right here. Okay, we've got folio et cetera, cui ostendent amene orum. The folio and the rest wherein they show from the morning by these things, or through these things, you can use that as well. By these things I work and I create that star of the heights, the star of stars, with the tablets wherein the star being this, by whom is the following four. The four representing the four humors. So I thought, right? But I started thinking a little bit more about that, and because the author of the Voynich Manuscript absolutely loves layered meaning, he could also be indicating the Four Noble Truths. It would not be out of the question, which would make sense now that I remember translating the Oil of Truth, that phrase on folio 1R. Anyway, I digress. Okay, so Osis ort ostendent aster, cui osis soror erbas, herbario erbas, curatios certi, curae essentius, electuaris folio oleae, cui osis sumerum, sororum, creofolio iodum, sanguinis sideris rota creas creofolio osis. So again, he's using osis as a noun for disease or illness. He says, the disease arises. They show the star of the disease. The sister, the herbs, the herbalist's herbs, the cures of the garland, the essences of the cure, the electuaries, the page of oil of the disease of the highest sisters. So the most exalted sisters. I create on the same page the bloods of the star wheel that you create. I create the page of the disease, right? So I know this sounds odd, but what he's saying again, I create the page. He's actively going through the folio osis, right, to figure out what disease is ailing the patient. So not only is it, active singular, but it's also past tense as well, right, whenever he uses that term. Est oleo cum curatorium sanguinis celestio aqua sedera creas. It is when the oil of the curatorium's celestial bloods you create the humors of the stars. I'm going to go ahead and read the English going forward. I work the diseases with the oil from the morning. I tend the cures, which rising by which selection, such as in the curatorium, this of the stars of the sisters you create, wherein they show this, how much, wherein the first electuary, of or by which, from these I create the essence, and the more chosen of the creations of the sisters, made from the sisters, by the sisters, and made from the sisters, whose diseases or which diseases, of the risings of the curatorium of the flowers of that page, which by whom the flower of whom, or for whom, the chosen, such as the disease of whom the seed of the cure arranges the risings of whom of the sisters. So you see how often he uses cui and cuius? You have to figure out if it's of whom, of which, for whom. It's complicated. The flower of the stars of the curatorium arranges the following things. With oil I create the stars of the disease. I work this. It arranges that with the oil you create the highest from the disease. And the disease is from these as this star. Now, in Tibetan Buddhism, in Sara Rigpa, the seed, right, the seed of a plant or a seed of a flower, has the potential of both disease and curative power, right? So you often see this idea of how both are being discussed. It's like, wait a minute, how can that come from disease? Or how can disease come from that? And that's what he's referring to. The flower is healthy with the preparations by whose seed of oil, which humor preparation at dawn by the herbalists, etc. The sister being which hours, whose phlegm being the cure that arranges the selection. So here he's actually, for once, talking about the humor associated with this plant. And that I work from the morning. So here and there he does do that, here and there. But for the most part, the procedure is not entirely just about the plant. And that I work from the morning the best selection with that which arranges, and I forgot to put it, but arranges it, by whose, it should be, by whose it also is from the morning, the sign of the cure, with that labor shows, since the celestial is from the highest. And in this instance, celestis is being used, celestis sumerum. So the celestial is of the most exalted in this sense. In which this, by the stars, they are the oil. So the oil throughout the manuscript is associated, of course, with its own star, which arranges as the cures show from the morning or at dawn. through the holy ones constructed. Which humor of the holy ones is the cause of the health that they are in, like the patient. They are the wheel of the flowers being made, but of the following. Indeed, the following electuaries cure, being the herb seed with those holy ones. The flower is healthy in the cure from the morning by consequence, and the curatorium permits the revelation by some constructed cures of these. That should say certain, not some. I'll have to go back and change that. The cure's essence, they are golden, but from these writings and the cure of the flowers are the essences of that cure. In that fertile consistency, since I have the consistencies which are healthy, let us have of these the first flower, which from the morning, the curatorium having been curatives, the flower, the best selected seed from the pages. It is the cause whose spirit, with whose years of the most exalted arranges that cure. Some are holy, and of these and from the morning curatives around the herb being these, the flower for whom of which I create being the more selected. Indeed, with some arranged I have created, and from the morning the elements of whom the flower of causes is the cure. So here's the first time he talks about the flower of causes. And that's a very Latinized version of karma. That's the idea of the Tibetan version of karma and the seed of karma. So when he says causes, he's talking about the karma. And at first glance, this is just an herbal, right? But if you peel back the symbolic meaning of cause and effect, the elements, the 5 elements, what the seed represents in Tibetan Buddhism, all of those things, it starts to unravel the secret Kala chakra. And so even linguistically, it's beautifully layered with inner, outer, and secret Kala chakra, which is just amazing in and of itself. When you have done it, you create the seed, which is the electuaries. And there's a little note in the marginalia on the leaf. It says constructio aurea. Make the gold. Alright, here we have the, I forgot to show you the pictures. This is the page that we just read for knapweed. We're about to read the one for lotus. And you're more than welcome to, you can pull this up and read along with me. That would be helpful for you. And you'll get the hang of it once you start seeing the pattern. Oh, and this is a new word right here. It's the first time he puts an O at the top. So we have folio modo melancholia, cui eodem est creo enim oleae mene hoc sanis, creo enim sanguis curae laboros folio, cuius folio, cuius curatio, curatorium illo laboro, cui hoc quanto essentia sere illo laboros, creo enim samen, olea cuius creo enim qua corpus. So this first new term is corpus. Cui orum creo sed, creo sanam, cui electuaris samen, curatio. Creo quanto cui iodem enim creo samen. The folio in the manner of melancholy, wherein the same is. I create indeed the oil from the morning, this is healthy. I create indeed the blood of the cure. You labor the folio for whom it is, the folio for whom is in the cure, the curatorium, in that I work, wherein this is. How great the essence is to be, in that you labor. I create indeed the seed of the oil for whom it is. I create it indeed where the body is, for whom I create it also. I create health, which the seed of the electuary is, the cure I create. How great it is, which is the same, being that I create the seed. Here is another instance of a number, 300. He uses this a lot. Well, not a lot, sorry. He uses this, he uses CCC for 300. And that represents the number of stars. It was believed back then to be the amount in the ecliptic, or in the circle of the stars around the earth. The folio wherein it arranges the cures, the blood of whom the herbalists and the cure surrounds it, because of the sister from whom is the seed, because the sister is from whom I create. Again, he's using the analogy of sisterhood to represent the relationship of parts between the seeds, the stars, the oils, the electuaries, and the elixirs. Always that analogy. And that's why, him folding all of this meaning into each word and to only using an analogy of simple sisterhood helped him make it appear on the surface as if it were just so repetitive that it couldn't possibly mean anything else. Because the sisters from whom I create, indeed that which arranges through the page by them, of which you labor the seed. Is he identifying the seed of the illness to star risings, then basing the herbals on star plant associations and the seven sisters? Yes. So all of the, yeah, pretty much. He's connecting all of them together. Yep. But it's also the seed of the illness and the seed of the cure. It's both. And it's also both the illness and the cure that rise at dawn. And the seed is the basis for all of this entire process. At least also from the outer chakra, which is the Kala chakra, which is the most basic form. It's the surface level meaning of healing with plants. Okay, so, but the deeper that you get into the meaning of this, it starts becoming apparent that the seed he's referencing is bija, which is your potential for enlightenment. And he actually talks about this directly on folio 66R, where the name of the Voynich Manuscript is the Libertalis. He talks about how the seed, the healing of the electuary and the elixirs, are the path to suchness. He actually states that. So that's where you actually begin to understand, wait a minute, this isn't just about plants. This is about enlightenment. Non-dual sense illness cure from Tibet. It is dual. He loves lots of layered meanings, and why wouldn't he? It's based on Tibetan Buddhism and Kala chakra, so there's naturally going to be lots of layers. Yes, it's like an onion. Too bad the onion's not in here. Where was I? Okay, so it says where was I? I'll just restart it. Okay, so the folio wherein it arranges the cures, the blood of whom the herbalists and the cure surrounds, because of the sister from whom is the seed. Because the sister is from whom I create, indeed that which arranges through the page by them. So each of these is a step. Like you have to go figure it out, right? It's telling you how to figure it out, which is difficult in and of itself. Of whose you labor the seed. This I work, for indeed I created the seed. From the oil you create in that labor of the 300 stars, with which this folio is the same, and the created being, for indeed it is created, from the morning. I create the folio in that place of curatives. I create indeed the creatiorum through the sisters of the disease. The creatiorum is the section in the back where you see all the roots and the tree leaf and the plant leaves together with the bumpas and the sunoke pottery. There's like 4 folios, I believe. That's the creatiorum. That is the last stage, because it literally is the production stage, where you put everything in the jars. You know, you've created the thing, you know, that's why it's creatiorum, of the creations. Well, in this sense, it's of the created, but it's the term for creations. Here we have Bushman's tea, also called Kat or Katha edulis. This is also in my belief, the original Haoma and Soma of both Vedic and Zoroastrian sacred rite. And I have a whole other book on this. You can find it on Amazon. It's called Reinterpreting Haoma Soma. It's an ebook format. Okay, so we're going to start right here. I work the cure that is permitted. Okay, he uses the term permitted a lot. And that is in reference to what is allowed, right? So a patient has certain ordinals, right? Has certain plants, their own humor, innate humor, the one that they're born with, and also the humor that is rising because of their illness. So obviously only those associations with that person's birth date is allowed for that patient. So that is what he's referencing when he says licit, or it is permitted. I work the cure that is permitted, the humor of those select, the blood of the elixir, since by whose is the same, because that which orders or governs the star. In that I work the creations which order or govern. I shouldn't have in that there, that should just be by that creation, of whom it is the seed of the electuaries. And you create, indeed I create, the humor of the star, or the humor from the star. Of and from are interchangeable. The star I create in that folio, through the pages of them, and of these together with the star electuaries, and with which at dawn, whose ordering is a selection of the elixir of the humoral oil. The star's oil of them by this seed, which is the ordinal cure of the star elixir. So Here you start to see the term ordinalis. This is the rising of the star. This I make corporeal. So now he uses the term corporo ibi, corporeal, okay? He's literally saying he takes the spiritual element of all of this practice and makes it embodied in the electuaries and elixirs he's making for the patient. And there it arranges from the curatives of the star's oil, which the disease belongs to these, together with the stars of whom the chosen ordinal is. I'm going to take a quick break so I can grab some more water, but I'll be right back. Feel free to ask questions in the chat or discuss amongst yourselves. I will be right back. It won't be long at all. All right, I'm back. Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Okay, we are at... Okay, so it is through the same curatorium that the cures arise. This seed in that folio I create. Being in that I create the star by these electuaries, and that you will have done this in that labor. The cures on the page of disease. In that page, the cure is created from the disease, which governs by this blood and the rising of the essences. Through that, you will have done it. I work the cure the same star ordinal. The cure and the star, these arrange by them through the rest of the ordinal's oil, which the ordinal of the sun governs the star. Okay, this is no longer ordinat, but ordinalis. So we can probably deduce what page this is going to be on, just because of what he's saying. The sun governs the star, and there's an ordinal. There's only ordinals every 16 pages, except for a few outliers. Some of them are side by side in the Codex Constellarium Master. So we might be able to figure out which one it is. I actually do not know. I have not gone through this piece by piece yet. Ordinal of the sun governs the star. So now we're going to look for an ordinal in the codex section. I'm just curious. Let's pull up our pagination system. All right. These are the ordinals he talks about, or lists, I should say. This is the folio nonus, which is the Kalachakra wheel. So we should start here. All right, CC6V, there. I know this has to do with electuaries. So here we have an ordinal there. There's no ordinal here, so we're going to ignore this. It's probably absorbed into that ordinal, but this we already know that these are the ecclesias, so we're going to ignore those. Okay, no ordinals there. Let's pull this way, it'll make it easier. Nothing yet. And then this is where we begin to see the folio anni, or the folio annuus, which is basically the months. And you can see all of that here. Folio anni. These are the folio sororum, the pages of the sisters, starting here. And if you're curious about all of the page names, I have a master list that you can access on academia.edu. The folio nonus, aqua, essentia, amene, oleae, ordinat, ordinalis, curae, and here where we're talking about the folio sororum, the folio Isus, which is the folio of Jesus, and Jesus is associated with the medicine Buddha. Folio Aster Curatios, Aster Anni Astrologicos, which is the giant celestial fold-out map. Folio Anni Aster, Aster Ort Aqua, Aster Aqua, and then of course the Folio Creatiorum, which is what we talked about. That is right here. This is Creatiorum and onward. All of this. Folio Osses, the page of disease or illness. It's the entire reference section in the back with the stars. The folio Osses section is not, it does have an ordinal on here there, but it stops here at 20. There's minus 19. Alright, so let's get back on track here. So I work the cure of the same star ordinal. The cure and the star, these arranged by them, and through the rest of the ordinals oil, which the ordinal of the sun governs the star, and the oil the same by whose it is. And the creatiorum, it will be the cure that the page is the same elixir, that of the flower's seed, and by this essence of the elixir, the wheel of the same elixir, okay, the roundel, those are roundels. Every little circle that you see that covers the entire page, that's called a roundel. But here he calls it a wheel, rota, right? That's the term being used in Tibetan Buddhism, the wheel. The rising of the same elixir, the same is constructed, but of the highest, of the most exalted, and of the star. So here we can assume he's talking about, right, the folio essentia. So all of these overlapping concepts, the essence and the flower seed, you're literally having to go to these pages. The folio essentia, look, figure it out there, then flip it back over to the herbal section, and then flip it back over to here. So it's a lot of actually detailed steps in the process. It is which of them from the sister I tend the seed, in that it is permitted who arranges it, in that it is permitted by this sun, from whom in that you labor by the ordinal's oil. Now, the sun is also associated with Jesus, so it's kind of like a play on words here. The oil who arranges these, which is the same, being these are the same, because the blood, by that same labor, that is of the causes, which governs the electuaries, with the same being from who reveals it at dawn, right? Who reveals it at dawn? The sun, right? Through which and at dawn, this page through this governs the star. You can use governs or determines. Also orders. It's all the same. Whatever word works the best for you as far as this one specifically goes, is fine. It's easier with, you can say governs, you can say determines. I like determines better, but in some instances governs is more appropriate to show the authority of the subject. The folio from the morning. Oh, this is folio 4 verso, Pleone orchid, or Pleone yunanensis, which means it's from Yunnan, China. It's absolutely this. It is purple and white. So we're going to go back up to Pleone. And this Pleone orchid is actually closed. It hasn't unfurled the outside petals yet. The folio from the morning. For the celestial one I work this with the earth of the herbs. The arrangement from the morning, and we pray. That sounds a little choppy, so it should be let us pray, and let us pray. They are golden, but in that I work the risings of whom. Right? So here I think he's talking about the birth dates of the patient, which orders, the rising orders, I should say constructions, I apologize for the typo, the constructions of the sisters, the stars, the rising, this of the elixir of the curatorium and the assemblage, whose ordinal, whose stellar essences, the star rises. In that, the stars through whose, and in the folio of the creatiorum, the humor rises from the sister's created star because of melancholy. So here we have an association with melancholy. With the created star indeed, this I work, whose humor I create indeed, whose star arranges the herbs. The created star arranges the folio, through whom they reveal the humors. I create the elixir. So he's constantly talking about the creation of the electuary and now the creation of the elixir. The work I create indeed, the oil who is the star. Indeed, I create the star of the most exalted, and I make them together through the page that I create the elixir. I mean, that's pretty straightforward, right? Indeed, I create the rising of the herbs, those constructed whose essence is the star in this page from this selection. The sister, the humors. Indeed, I create the electuaries, this which orders the seed. In that folio, the curatorium, are the seeds, through whom this folio is the astrological cure. The cure of the many herbs that I have, the herbs I work, which order who reveals at dawn, whose ordinal is of this cure. Right? Here we again referencing the ordinal. Which reveals the year, the constructed labor which governs the page, who from the star and the star cures page at dawn in that folio which is made from the electuaries, whose flower of health is the curative of the star when nearby that star. I know, lots of clauses and prepositions. All right, so here we have the page for bladder campion, Selene vulgaris. Yes, it's very it's very temporal. Disclosure is out. I don't know what you mean. Thank you, Trevor. I appreciate it. I'm going to start working on Secundus Ordinal. I'm probably going to smooth some of this out because I haven't yet. I might just do like how I have Latin and then English. I'll probably do literal English and then implied English to make it more easily understandable. Excuse me. This folio of the most exalted, through which is the disease of the curatives, by these essences of the cure I work around the sister melancholy, which governs the construction. They are the cure being from the curatorium, the curatorium of the chosen cure. The labor through which from the morning is the star, which governs at dawn, whose ordinal of the oil for whom it is. For whom it is, whose is from the morning, and that labor from the morning, the seed of the cure of the year, and that I work for whom it is, whose crushed seed rises at dawn, the electuaries. It is with the seed that I work in that, of whom you work, but the one who orders the cures. I work for whom it is. Also I work which essences, in that labor all of the seed of the electuaries, the chosen of the ordinal of the cure. The curatorium arranges it. The curatorium of the electuaries of the higher ones, but the seed of the herb for whom I work, whose page orders at dawn, is this of the highest. For the cure is the cure with the curatorium, the celestial one from the morning, in that the labor which all of the same cures, being that you work, and all which is at dawn, which is from the morning, the seed of the electuaries. This is the page for black cumin or Nigella sativa. I create all things in the folio of the cure. I create the same folio, since I create that of the sisters. The Holy Scriptures reveals these. You create which electuaries, the cure, the folio, which orders the cure. The same is the created hours for whom is also the cure. The cure which is from the morning seed, in that seed the star of stars, in that page for whom it is, from these electuaries, whose oil is the same, where in the seed of the electuaries cure, for the cure is the essences of the cure, the chosen of the oil. There actually is a page of oil, so you have to go back and see how it says the chosen of the oil. It's talking about which oil you chose, right? So it's at that stage. The entirety of the cures encircles by this labor, which is all of it, which the years show the constructed year, which cure stage the page of whose is the celestial disease. And here we start seeing the word opus a little bit more. The labor governs through the cure. The essence governs which arranges the cure. The page through the celestial, but from these, however, which governs the cure of the chosen ones. The oil governs the selected hours by this. So here we understand now that the oil itself governs the chosen hours. This page of this noble path, which the same elixir is, which electuary cure rises the oil seed at dawn, the same cure. The rising is the same, but of whom I create in the same page. Also the cure in the page of whom, indeed the cure reveals, with the cure I work from the morning, in that seed of the labor, in that fertile cure, the rising of them. And you will have done it, the cure of the star, whose star the disease, the cure of the disease, and in the same indeed I create the folio of the disease, the curative seed, in that you work this disease of the cure through the fruitfulness in that labor of the disease. So here we have the page of the noble path, folio vi nobilis. This is the page for mango, Mangofera indica. I'll let you look over that for just a second. I'll be right back. Alright, so here we have Mangofera indica, or mango. It says, the folio of the cure of the disease, it is permitted, which stage on whose page of the stage of these at dawn. This from the morning, the star of these and the rest, whose of the disease, the garland of the cures, when by this you create the roundel, in that page from the morning the cure of the herb. With the chosen one you create the rising. And of the oils in that from the morning, the certain or specific oil, whose seed is of the oil. The assembly I create, the electuaries of the oil, whose in that I work, whose disease of the oil, the year of the cured disease I created, and the created govern by which of these electuaries, or through these electuaries. Actually, no, he's referencing the Tibetan Buddhist Noble Path. It's Tibetan Buddhist, not European. Hi. Almost good morning for us, or for me at least. I work the cures, the cure of the disease, and that from the morning of whom of these, and the cure, in that I work the same seed. So I know this seems like da-da-da-da-da-da-da, very choppy, slightly repetitive, but if you really look at what he's saying and you match up the pages, it helps you to understand why he's saying what he's saying and the order of it. You create in that same one, indeed, the electuary's cure. I work the cures, but in that I work this essence, you will have made it, through the same folio, through the cure of the disease. This one's nice and short. This is for mentha spicata, or mint. I will say I was very relieved not to have to do a whole bunch on this page. The folio of these creations. It which orders the constructed ones, you create its cure. It reveals through the cure, in which this seed constructs the noble path. Remember the discussion of what seed is in Buddhism, the bija, or biya? The seed of the followers, from whom the oils from the morning are the chosen years, the one who orders the oil, and with it I create such a one who orders, they are the elixirs. Right, so now we're talking about the elixirs that are determining something or governing something, right? In that work I create the construction of the seed of the oil, right? So here he's already constructed this by pulverizing, contritus, right? Pulverizing the seed into the oil. Who's one which orders the seed, at the highest, indeed, the one who orders the sister. Okay, and that I work the one who orders the cured ones, or curatives, to be of the oils, all of the curatorium, the seed cure, the page, the essence of these, the one who orders, and the one who, in the same, the labors of the oil, of whom, or for whom, meaning the patient, the seed of the highest, for whom, or of whom, whose oil from the morning, of the oils of whom, the bloods show the elixirs. So the folio of the creations, the creatiorum that I showed you in the back, is heavily focused on elixirs, but it does also include electuaries. So here we have the same pages which I showed earlier. Okay. This is on Himalayan balsam and Pathian's glandiflora. And I will do some fun stuff and show some images that I have found. I did put up short videos of these, but I'll show them on here as well. So the permission of this star. When the curatorium of whom the celestial ones order, indeed I create through the herbs. I create the oil of whom the seed of the star. You say, I create the oil of whom it is. I forgot to put brackets of it is the seed of the star. So the patient's seed of the star, whose herbs I indeed create. Indeed I create in the folio the star of the electuaries. For the selection I create the labors, and such this essence is of the star. The folio of the cure orders whose rising it is within, in which the assembly stands together. The assembly meaning the assembly of stars on those 2 pages. The same indeed is constructed from the morning of the star. The stars I create, and the created ones order it. I create the electuaries of the oil of the star, with the pathway for whom I work the star. So here we have pathway, okay, ambitus. On folio astrologicos, or you can also say astrologicorum, it's the same thing. That's the giant celestial fold-out map. This celestial map is being referenced, okay? On folio 66R, where the name of the Voynich Manuscript, Libertalis, is, he talks about the pathways, the paths or the pathways of the folio astrologicos. This is literally what he is talking about, right here. All the pathways in between. They're all interconnected. And so that is what he is describing here again. The pathway for whom I work the star. Okay? So on folio 66 recto, he goes into more detail about what that actually means. Yes, he's healing the patient, but on folio 66R, he actually goes into the deeper meaning of suchness. Of how the seed going across the pathways on the celestial map leads to suchness, which is the center of the map. This is suchness, the ultimate reality of who we are and why we are, what we are, etc. Each pillar here, there's 6 of them, represents the 6 pillars of suchness, but also the 6 pillars of the qualities of the Buddha. And these are Sunokes, the Myanmar Burmese version of Bumpas. So it gets pretty complicated because it's not only just like procedural herbalism, but it's also doctrinal of Tibetan Buddhism. The rising from the morning of the curatives is to be. The humors constructed of the chosen ones from the morning reveal the star that governs the humor, the seed of the herbs, the rising of the ordinal of the chosen ones from the morning. Yes. Yep. Very good. The rising of the ordinal, the chosen ones from the morning, with the seed that I repeated that on accident, the seed that I create, and of whom the rising from the morning, with whom I work the herb, indeed it is whose star of the cure. So whenever you see whose a lot, he's talking about the patient. You kind of can just replace it with the patient, right? It is the patient's star of the cure. The same herb from the morning, the stars of the curatives, and the page, moreover, shows the star of the oil from the morning. Whose hours I work, and whose star is of these. Whose star of these, whose rising from the morning the curatorium orders. or determines. The chosen of the ordinal, which determines the electuaries, and that the electuaries of the electuaries show from the morning with the cure I work, from the morning with the page of the pathways. Folio ambitus. Here we have globe thistle or Echinops retro. This folio of the astrologicals. Here we have folio hawk, or hick in this instance, it would be a hick. Folio, you're just supposed to know what the case is on this. It's just assumed, so he just puts O for everything. Folio hawk astrologicos. This folio of the astrologicals, with also the star, whose essence is the folio of the star, in that the star determines the cure. The cure is whose it is. The cure is for the patient, right? And you create the star, whose star is of the oil, whose this essence it is, and the one who orders it, which herbs it is, and that will be whose star is the created star. This is the most exalted of the noble path. The folio you create is the one who orders it, or determines it, who is from the morning. And that moreover, the herbs of whom it is, the manner which these herbs on the folio of the creations, whose work, the herbs, this of the flowers, and the rest, which everything with the herbal cure is constructed, whose stage, and when everything is with the stars, when the second sequence is rising from the constructed disease. So here we finally start to see secundus, which is the next section. So he's talking about the second sequence, right? The blood disease's cure is through this star. The rising of the star orders the oils of the sisters, and they belong to that ordinal. The labor which the disease cure, I should have put is of the chosen ones. That's funny, I put a long S, you guys. Is of the chosen ones. I create the electuaries, and with the one who orders it, with whose seed is of the chosen ones of the sisters. With the one who orders it. The one who orders in this folio you create is on that folio of the secret stage. Okay, so here we have opus occulto, of the most exalted. Remember how I was talking about there's the inner, the outer, and the secret Kala chakra? That's the secret stage. The one who orders the chosen of the ordinal, and on that folio, through which they show with the created star, the folio whose it is, also the four. Okay, the quatuor, be the four humors or the Four Noble Truths, depending on which stage you are in, right? Whose star is of the oil, the star of stars, chosen by the ordinal. But the constructed one is the one who orders the cures in those starry electuaries, the continuation of the seed of the electuaries. So here he uses the continuation to represent, obviously, the continuation through the process, through the sequences. And the one orders, this being the essence, and the one who orders it, this being the essence, right? So he could have just easily said, this essence orders it, but he's saying, and the one who orders it, being the essence. So he's not using enim for only the word because. It's also being that. This being the essence orders it on that folio. It orders whose it is of the elect ones, or the chosen ones. The labor through whose humor of the disease I create the herbs, and it governs through it. And the annual cycle of the star, this through the chosen star. The chosen one orders the electuaries, or determines it, with which the pathway of the herbarium, the chosen, reveal the stars. But the constructed ones I create from the chosen ones, whose is to be the selection. Indeed, this is from how much the folio, which orders through the sister, is because of the sequence. It governs through the stars from the rising seed, since it is the same in being that it governs this chosen star. It determines the chosen star. It is permitted, who's this seed of the cure. It is the created paste. So here we have a different word, a new word. And let me go to this page so you can see it. So just as my hunch was that elo, the symbol for eel, right, can also be a P, is true. It's true. When it's not coupled with an O, it's a P. Okay, so we have the Thai plant, Cordyline fruticosa. And here's an example of that right here. Pisto, for paste. It is the created paste of the cure with which all the essences of the cure are on that or in that, whose setting star, and here we start seeing the oxidant, oxiduous, all of those cases, right? Even though it's saying western or west, it represents the setting, right, of the star. Whose setting star they are, whose essences on the same page indeed is the cure, indeed of the sisters of the elixirs. The elixirs you create on that page, whose is around the oils, whose is the created disease of the setting, right? The process of the sun setting is the essence, and whose the same seed of the cure, the essences are constructed. I should have put, or is constructed right here. Whose the essences on that labor. So you see lots of whose's here. It's for the patient, right? The patient's essences, the patient's humor. I forgot to change it from water to humor. So aqua is the term for humor. I create how much you create the seed when you create the page whose all are this seed, this pathway, the oil from the morning, or the oil at dawn. Folio curatorium hoc curati. The folio of this curatorium's curatives. When by that labor the essence is, and whose flowers, also the oils, I create, because I create from the morning. The cure is with the chosen ones, whose oils, which is the healthy cure of the disease. The curatorium, whose oils, and whose of this folio you create are the essences. The essence, and I don't know what this was, so I'm going to have to go back to it. Whose olives, I think it should be olive oil or olive oil related, on that folio. Here we can say through. I don't think he means whose in this instance. Again, cuius is also being used as through that, by that, not just whose. The curatorium you will have made it, which healthy oils of that specific one, whose of these, whose all, who's the celestial around the cure. I know this is confusing. I have to go back through and check it. The herbs I create, whose folio which reveals it, and whose annual cycle determines the seed through the herbs. It is of these, with the cures around the cure I work, whose disease, or which disease, in that it is whose oils of the curatorium. Again, whose and which can be flip-flopped here, and I do believe that it would be which that would be more appropriate. But the seed I work, the cure the sister, but I create through the electuaries the seed in that flower, whose elevated seed is of the select ones. The electuaries of the chosen are in that page, which are constructed, which you will have made the folio of the cures, the flower you work, the sister indeed, whose essences is of these. This should be creatiorum, not creators, whose oils the assembly is. This whose star, this which star, this should be which all, which is the healthy cure. The folio of the cures of the curatorium are the assembly of the sisters. The sequence reveals at dawn, right? Sequentia ostendent amene. In that work, which the created things are around the work, which essences. I'm going to have to go back and change whose in this whole entire passage, but you get the idea. The folio, which one orders, the cures are likewise the cures of the same seed. The cure, the rising of the curatorium. The curatorium, the blood in that, and the rising cure are the assembly. Which one orders, which likewise indeed is the seed. The cures of the oils I create from the sisters. From the sisters, the sister indeed, at dawn. In that work the essence likewise indeed I create, which essence of the disease. In that work you create the tablets, this folio, which orders the seed, the cure they have made it. This is of the pathways, whose rising, which sister indeed is theirs, also the seed of the sisters. So as you can see, it is complicated when he's couching terms under one word. And that's why it's difficult. It's also difficult because he doesn't use punctuation. He repeats concepts or the exact word twice to represent the end of a sentence and the beginning of a new one. Also, when he has a lot of description clauses, relative clauses all stacked together, that is also what takes the longest, is determining where those relate to. We have folio 8R, which is ivy, Hedera nepalensis, which is also, he conflates it with Tinospora as well. They both do the same thing. It is the curatorium which determines the oils, the cures, the humor, which the sun with the celestials, which that heavenly disease cure, reveals the star cures, because the labor which you labor, the cure. The created page's humor and the rising cure's created sister. The sequence of health's humor, which reveals the star, curatives, and the rest, which reveals at dawn, the cure. The page through which reveals also on that labor star which governs it, which it determines the essence of the cures, and they are by whose cures to be released. And here we see esoniare, not to be excused, but to be released, which this is permitted through the star. So in this context, both illness and the cure are potentials inside the seed. And so that has to be released through the act of grinding or pounding up the seeds. He uses the term contritus for that process. Which this is permitted through the star. The rising you create, the sister indeed, the essence around it, and the flower, and I create whose flower? Christ-like, the folio just from the morning. I create and I work from the morning. I work this cure of Christ, the folio whose essences are the flowers of the labors, and the cures whose by these elements, whose essence of the disease, and of these whose oil, the folio through these specific ones, I create the healthy order of the seed's sequence. So even though he's talking about Christ and Jesus, here you haven't seen, you don't see Jesus' name yet, but here he's talking about Christus, right? Again, Christ is associated with the medicine Buddha, but you won't see that until much later in the manuscript. So the flower of Christ, right? The flower, you remember the phrase, the flower of causes? Okay, the flower of karma. All of these things are going to become important later on in the doctrinal message. This labor I create the elements cure. And here we start talking about the elements, okay? In the pages of Essence, Folio Essentius, we start seeing the elements, the 5 elements of Tibetan Buddhism: fire, earth, water, air, and space. This labor I create the elements cure. It is whose essence it is. You create this, and it is permitted that you create them. They are the essences of the cures in the curatorium, the seed cure being the seed whose essences I work. The essence reveals certain ones, in which likewise the electuary's rising cures. Likewise from the sisters, the elixirs of the bloods, the curatorium, which is the same seed. The sister seed with the labor, which disease, which oils, and which olives. I think he means olive oil because he immediately says the oil. Another more noble path, therein I create the seed cure of the oil, the rising of the disease, which is from the oils. The labor I create, you create the curatorium, which from this you are permitted. But the cure you create in the page works as where the disease is, who's from the humor of the sequence, around the herbs through whom you create the page, which and of whom I chose the seed of the sisters, from the blood of whom it is, the herbs of whom it is. Those you create in the folio, through which rising by whose it is, and at which it is, and around the folio through it, as it is created at dawn. The chosen affirmed electuary star, the stars whose sequences are on that folio of the star, which at dawn the created ones are. The Christ page, with whom the star, which at the dawn's rising, the celestial star, is. The Christ page is folio Isus. Here he says Christus folio. But there actually is a page of the infant Jesus. And that is where you actually see the association of him as the medicine Buddha and Mary as Tara. because there's a little double Vajra near the star. But we'll get to that later. But that's what he's referencing here. The Christ page with whom the star, which at dawn's rising, the celestial star is. Later on in the manuscript, Jesus' star is actually called the star of suchness, which would make sense, considering he's associated with the medicine Buddha, and the concept of suchness exists within him. Which at dawn and where the seed is, which determines the cure because of the created humor, whose star, and moreover the created annual cycle of the celestials, the stars of the curatorium, the page of dawn. In the curatorium, the page of dawn, there is a specific stellar order, which this is to be around the cures, around this humor folio, which humor, and through also the plant anise. And the plant anise is actually in there, toward the back. So here we have the last folio, the last page of Mourning Widow, Kleinia Abyssinica. Here he's just taking artistic license with this. The labor which shows in this manner, which and from these the curatorium of the oils through the sun created dawn, the sun with the seed, and at dawn the cures of the chosen humor, and the star which orders the curatives at dawn, and the healing whose page it is, and whose oil at dawn it is, the elements created, and the rest from which the hours is the created star. The curatorium, which is at dawn, the cures at dawn from the sister stars, they are the curatorium. The curatorium of the most exalted created specific electuaries, the curative humor seed, which the astrologicals, through it, through the stars of the oil, which of the element star at dawn is of the chosen one's stars, and with the seed, the chosen one's specific constructions, of which you create with the page of dawn's healthy star cure. The page from which the stars are the cures around the electuaries, from which the oils of the years and the rest, the rising of which the page's cures through, by which, this is where it gets confusing, by whose of which, or by which, whose of which, the chosen ones at dawn is healthy. This is what I was talking about. Cui orum, cui orum, cui orum, cui orum electi. The curatorium determines from which the rising is, through of which I choose it, because of whose dawning, in which star through this essence, and the disease of the page you create it. It is through the celestial star ordinal, therefore, because of the year. There is by which the star I create indeed of these, of the most exalted, the curative star by which I create the work at dawn, by which the seed's humor page I create indeed the oil, by which the star is rising I create the folio of the years, the same folio the flower of the oil determines, by whose cause I work the star, right, their karma. The cures govern. You have to remember also, in Tibetan Buddhism, your karma determines your illness. Whatever happens to you is caused by, it's karma, right? Cause and effect. So that's what he's referencing here. By whose cause I work the star. The cures govern from the rising, how much the folio of dawn's curatorium, from the flowers by which the selected star I work, whose herbs it determines, of which through the specific ones, through the Christ flower, the flower I create is because of the created year. Which star, which essence? The flower I create indeed, and the rest I create, being through the same being through the same. Indeed, the created star of the oil, the essences. The created star of the oil's essences of the following, indeed, by which this is the second ordinal. I create indeed at dawn the healthy created star's seed. Okay, so now he mentions by which this is the second ordinal. He explicitly states it, and then of course the second ordinal starts, because that is the end of Primus. So here we have a basic understanding of the process. So he's introducing new ideas like the Christ flower, the flower of causes, Christ star, but eventually he starts using the term Isus, or the name Isus for Jesus. So that is the Curatorium Primus, and hopefully I will get started on Secundus shortly. However, I would like to go over some plants, pictures, just for the heck of it. Oh, does anybody have any questions for me? Seeds seem to mean thoughts on a deeper level. Yes, yes, absolutely. So, and you're more than welcome to read all the tantra stuff regarding bija, or the seed. It's interesting. It's very, very interesting. So yes, when you start looking at the deeper meaning as you read the text, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. All right, so we are going to talk about some plants. I don't know if any of you have seen the videos I posted, but we'll just go over them again. All right, so we're going to talk about Ceropegia and I've already forgotten what folio it is. We got 18V, 22V. Okay, so plant ID for 13V is Ceropegia. Okay, you'll see the exact thing that he's drawn. I think he's actually done this quite well. Okay. So here is, and I apologize, it's pretty giant. I don't know how it looks on the screen. Okay, that works. Some of them are sideways, I apologize. You might have to crane your neck a little bit. All right, so here we have Ceropegia is what he is drawing. He's drawing the variegated version. Here's the flower. It has the umbel here. Some of them do open up. These on some species do expand open, like he has drawn it here. So I am wondering if there's, because there's species that grow in Yunnan, but there's also species that grow on the southern eastern side of Africa. And you're like, wait a minute, I thought this was Tibetan Buddhist. Yes. So he's documenting plants throughout his travels, and he does stop in the Horn of Africa. Okay, but there are species in Yunnan. But the succulent form is only in the coast of Africa. And this is the succulent form. So we've got more of the same. Here a closer look at the heart shape of the leaves. And the succulents, of course, are holding water right now because they're thicker. Here you can see what he was trying to depict. This part right here. Yes, yes, yes. Sorry, it's my cat. And you're seeing that right here. And here. And here. And here is an exact match with the roots. And so you can see it's an exact match for Ceropegia. It has the same circular root with just the fibrous root, or sorry, bulb with the fibrous roots just on the bottom edge here and nowhere else. You see the exact same thing on the roots here. So this is Ceropegia, folio 13 verso. And then we have here, since this is close by, we'll go to this one. Folio 11 recto. This is a Gesneria, specifically Petrocosmia rotundiflora. Rotundifolia, sorry, because it's brown leaf. That's what that means. All right, so here we have the general morphology of Petrocosmia rotundiflora folia. And this is where the this gets interesting because the flowers emerge from in between these leaves. So he is just drawing it as he sees it, as it just starts flowering before they actually expand out. And then we have the rhizomes, scaly rhizomes here. And you see the same thing up here. Same, and it's a little blurry, but that's what these are. Here it's blooming, and there's up close, you can see all the little scales. I don't know what happened here, but I've edited something on this tab. Alright, so let's see. Himalayan balsam on folio 6 recto. This is where you start to see the taxonomy that he uses. It's pretty basic, but it works when you're in a hurry, right? So it's pointy, right? So that means it's got a serrated edge. But he also makes them wavy, which means the leaf is pliable. It's not rigid. So that's why he does that. Here he has cut off the tips of the seed pods. He indicates their seed pods by doing this little feature right here, that you can peel it back and the seeds are inside. That's why there's dots. These are the cut petals. Here you see the white veining. Here you see a node right here that he draws. It comes down to the roots, but there's this odd cap structure, and then you have the roots. You'll see why he does this in a minute, and this too. Alright. Here we have the seed pods of the Himalayan balsam. You can kind of see down here some serrated leaves growing. Some of them are red tipped, not all of them. Here you see the white veining. This is it actually after it flowers. And you can see the serrated leaves and the white veining, or the mid vein. I apologize for it being sideways, but here you see the first node. So that's the line that he drew, right? And then this is the root, right? But it kind of starts creating a weird little cap with the roots. Here's another example. It creates a cap. And so when you pull it up, it kind of takes the dirt with it. And here's the first node. This is a juvenile little sapling, right? So it's more red. But here you can see how the roots, they're spindly. You can see that really well here as well. Oh, I wasn't looking for insects. What is the drop falling? Oh, that? Yeah, that's just moisture. Is that what you're talking about? And here you can really see it's the same. It's just water. Here's the same, what is the word I'm looking for? Mode? No, just the way it's flowing, right? Same concept here. So as they mature, the plant loses that bright redness. You're welcome. Okay, and then let's see what else we can find here. If I can find it quickly. Okay, now here we have one of the coolest plants. This is Rum nobilis, noble rhubarb. This is, of course, native to the Himalayas in Tibet and Bhutan. And this is it. This is the noble rhubarb. And it will grow when it's snowing. Like, it'll snow and it'll still grow. It's beautiful. Some of those pictures that you find. This is the crown when it starts emerging from the ground. This is a red one. They come in yellow, green, and some of them start growing fiery red. It's really neat looking. It kind of reminds me of a flamenco dress, almost. Here are the roots. Now this really captures the crown very well. You can see the same here. It's the same thing. Here's another. You can kind of see how they separate, which is why he is drawing them like this. They actually do separate and have their own stalks. So the leaves aren't connected here. There are stalks to them. And that's their range. Okay. Here we have both on each side of the page. Perfect. Okay. This is crepe ginger, also called spiral ginger. Okay, again, I apologize for the pictures being sideways. Here's crepe ginger growing together. You can really see how the leaves are midway, and that's what he's depicting there. I also believe that he was looking at several of them at once. It's not just the one. You can see how it kind of looks like it's stacking up. And so that is what he's showing here. But it is the same thing. Just look at that, and then come over here, and it's this. Right there. And here he's depicting the spiral of leaves around, because they do grow in a spiral, hence their name. You can kind of see that, the edge here. And there's the roots. And then this is where it gets really interesting. This is eucalyptus, which indicates he reached the northern edge of Australia, if not the southern. This is red river gum, a specific species of eucalyptus. Here you see the ovate leaves when it's younger. They do end up elongating quite a bit. There's the flower with the blue leaf, which is what he's trying to depict here. And here you can see just the circle of red, right? He's not coloring the center in on purpose. And there you see the red ring. And there's this little thing that is protruding, and he's depicting that with the dot that you're seeing. But what's really cool is this. This is the kicker. I love this. This is a very mature eucalyptus, and eventually all of the roots fuse together in a tabletop formation. And here you can actually see a notch right there. And I find it funny that's a dead center too, because that's what he's showing here. The tabletop fusing of the roots with a notch. So this is Red River gum. So he made it all the way to the northern edge of Australia. Let's see if I can find the others quickly. You know, I often asked myself that question. You know, he did all of this, he went to all these places, and he documented all these plants, but where are the botanical specimens? You know, but then again, I don't even know where he was buried. I have no idea. What I find interesting is that when I inquired about him, the abbey wasn't even aware of him, which is quite interesting. The only indication that you have that he exists is that he says his name and that he's this sacristan of the abbey in his 12th year, and that's it. Not in this manuscript, in a different one. So there's just no other record, and there are a few missing pages out of the folio osis section. I'm like, how great would it be to find them somewhere, you know? Excuse me. Yes, I have. And I talk about it in my book. We can go over some of them, if some other ones as well. I'm trying to find these last two. I know that they're toward the back. Here we go. Here's one. Is that it? No, that's not it. I could just do this the easy way and go to my book. Here we go. Alright, so here's my book, the Voynich Manuscript, the Cipher and the Compendium. The most up-to-date version is the Dalai Lama version. That's the one with the ISBN. So let's do this. Okay, so it's 26V. Okay, so this is Dubai. That's its local name. It's native to Borneo. It's called the Dubai olive. It's really not an olive, but basically this is the fruit. He always colors the fruits a dark blue or purplish or brown. And these, the fruit are chopped off. So you can see on the inside, the seeds on the inside. He does this quite a bit with the flowers and the fruit. And I'll show you the picture of the Dubai tree. Here's the fruit. As you can see, it's the same kind of flopping over direction. I can actually show you a quick rundown of it. Here are the roots. And you can see the space in between the leaves, how it's like even. I mean, this is an odd way of a plant to grow. In my opinion, I've never seen something with such a thick structure, you know what I mean? It's just weird. But he does capture that perfectly in the manuscript. Let me see if I can zoom in. Here we go. See? Same thing. Same roots and everything. So he doesn't do a terrible job. It's just you have to know what you're looking at. So that's Dubai. And then we have... Oh, and here's the word for osis. Disease. OS9. This is for laboro. The double loop is always for laboro. It can either be the labor or I labor. Or I work. Alright, Darmera. I wonder if I'll find it before it actually searches the page. Let's see. Goodness gracious. Oops. I need to do that. No, I know it's in here. This is why I don't like to use PDF. See, look how quickly that went through. All right, so this is Darmera peltata, the umbrella plant. So he does not draw all of the flowers. He's trying to focus on the inside of this flower, so it's easier to identify. But this is actually supposed to be like a clump of them, okay? And here we have the Darmera peltata umbrella plant. You can see the same filament and anther here. Again, he's only focusing on the inside of it. But here you see the large lobed leaves. Oops. Guess we don't need this at this point. You see the same thing here, same leaf shape. And then when you get down to the roots, it's an interesting match. Right here. These are the roots of the Darmera peltata or umbrella plant. And he's actually drawing even the these little things that grow out the edges. They're green and stubby. And that's what he's depicting there as well in the tail of it. Right here. Would you like me to go over some plants? Some other ones? Oops. Sorry, my cats are biting. Or if you want, I can go to the map and show you. Did those religions he turned to also use those plants? Yes, absolutely. So, Sour Rigpa, it's Tibetan. Tibetan Sour Rigpa is called the Science of Healing, and it pulls from Ayurveda and traditional Chinese medicine. But you're probably wondering, well, a lot of these plants are from, the Horn of Africa, or the southeastern Asian islands, Australia, so Persia even. So how is that possible if it's Tibetan Buddhist Sour Rigpa? That's easily answered by the fact that there's different regions in Tibet that practice different styles of Tibetan Sour Rigpa. There's the Amdo region in eastern Tibet, which allows for substitutions. So if you don't have a particular plant on hand, you can substitute it with another plant that has the same function. And so he is practicing Amdo region Tibetan Sour Rigpa, which makes sense because he's spent a lot of time near Dali, Yunnan, China, right on the edge of Tibet, Myanmar, and Yunnan. The kingdom of Dali, although was already extinguished as a kingdom, its state religion was Tibetan Buddhism, which still carried over culturally even after the next kingdom. Absolutely. Okay, so here is his starting point right here in Switzerland, okay, at the Abbey. He would have gone through the Swiss Alps into Venice. And these are all Venetian ports all the way down. But they also map where each plant is. Except for this point. So we've gone down through here, stopped here, gone into the Middle East, okay, and traveled into Persia. Okay, oops. And he would have gone through here, down this way. But he also went down this way, on the way back. So this is Dali right here. He traveled all through here, just all this direction. So here's Dali. So these are all the trade routes he would have taken. But he also, through my most recent research, I now know that he actually did travel down the Red River to Hanoi, back through this way, down into Sumatra, Borneo, and all the way to northern Australia. So my book, the Voynich Manuscript, the Cipher, and the Compendium goes into detail about your questions. do you have any other questions for me? I'm more than happy to like go over them briefly. If you give me just a few minutes, I'm going to take a break, and you're more than welcome to ask questions in the chat, and I'll come back and read them. Okay, so I am back. Yes, so the person that I believe is the best candidate for being the author of the Voynich Manuscript is a gentleman by the name of Clemens Specker. He was sacristan monk at Koningsfeld Abbey in his 12th year in 1478. The Voynich Manuscript was written around 1423, and I have confirmed that date due to a plant species. But yes, the abbey that he lived at was owned by the Habsburgs. In fact, the ancestral seat of the Habsburgs is actually right there in Windisch, in Berg, or Brugg, sorry, the castle there. And the abbey was dissolved in 1523, so all of the texts and stuff that he was responsible for would have been probably moved and dispersed among the Habsburgs. But yes, all of those details are discussed in the book. That's why I really don't go over it as much as I do the translations. I don't know what cat you're referring to. Well, it's not that it's disguised in a healer's guide. They're both things simultaneously. So a practitioner in Tibetan Buddhism, when they read this, they would know automatically what it is. They would have to figure out, you know, if they didn't know Latin, if they didn't know the Latin abbreviations, they would have to learn those things. But once they understood the terms, they would understand the content easily. And if it was a European, they would probably not, understand that exactly. Or I wouldn't call it like a disguise per se, like it's disguised in it. Just more that functionally it is both things at the same time. But I see what you're trying to say. It's the secret, right? It's a secret. It's if you don't know the terms, then you're not going to understand that there's a deeper meaning. Just because it's written in the Himalayas doesn't mean that necessarily that the binding or the pages are from there. He probably took the vellum in the book and all that with him, but that's possible. You're absolutely that's not out of the question. It's a good idea. But most likely he brought them with him on his way. So it was written while he was traveling, so it's not just in Tibet. So here are some comparisons to other manuscripts in the region that Clemens Specker lived in. Here we have a Liber Aster, the Book of the Star. You can see the S's are drawn the same. There's this. Here's Aqua. There's the same thing. This can be Terra or Cura. Most likely Terra here. Here we have Aster again. Here's the word herba. So Aster, herba, star herb. He drops the H. Here's a look at this match right here. I thought this was neat. And this is from this manuscript right here. Let's see. Oh, here is the normal pagination. I did a little bit of handwriting analysis between these two. At least the style. This is all done in a style called current. It's German. This is from the Koningsveld Abbey where he lived and worked. And this is his one and only known work, the Chronicles of the 95 Rulers, which is the Chronicles of the Habsburgs. And here I go over some Diepold-Lauber associations, famous scriptorium at the time. He ran it. Here we have the Elo that's also indications of the highly separated P, because this is post for posunt, but it also is IO for id-AO. So that indicated to me that what I was seeing here as ELO is also a P, which I've confirmed elsewhere in the manuscript. Oh, you haven't seen the medicine Buddha. Let me show you guys. Oops. Yes, absolutely. Especially in the region that he was from and the time period. It was during the Great Reformation. And even just before that. There was what they call the cult of the Meyerblight, and that in relation to Christianity, it is a lot of the nuns were forming this cult of the Meyerblight and wanting to recognize the holy anointing oil of Jesus as being divinely inspired through the feminine aspect. And the male clergy weren't really happy about it, so So the Voynich Manuscript talks about the divine feminine through the sisterhood, and the sisters aren't actually nuns. If you start looking into the Tibetan Buddhism, you'll see that they actually represent what they call dakinis, special sky spirits that are involved with the transmission of secret knowledge and herbal healing. And they wear the same silk ribbons and tiaras and are disrobed. So literally the same exact depiction, but through a European man's eyes. So this is where we start seeing some Buddhist symbolism. These archways are actually chaityas. This is a chaitya. It's the archway that the Buddha sits under. There's this way of drawing them, or the way they are in stone sculpture, but they are also in a more simplified form, like this. So these are the dakinis offering their arm bangles. And this is extremely important in Tibetan Buddhism. When a dakini offers her arm bangle, it's representing the transmission of wisdom to the practitioner, to the one that receives it. So that is why they are doing this. So remembering the archways of the chaityas, we can now see this coming to fruition here. This is where the medicine Buddha is. These are not windows, they are chaityas, and each one has a medicine Buddha in it, representing the 7 emanations of the medicine Buddha. The medicine Buddha in Tibetan Buddhism is called the king of lapis lazuli light, and that is why you're seeing blue in the chaitya, because he is radiating lapis lazuli light. And on the 7th one is where you can really see his body. Here's his head with the dot in between his eyebrows. And then you can see a right arm here, which is robed, touching the ground. His left arm does not have a robe in it. And you can see his elbow here, his hand is here, and he's holding what I believe to be a terminalia stem, because that makes the most sense. And his his knees here, his other knees over here, and his feet stick out right there. But the way he is positioned, his body, okay, is very important. It's called the Calling the Earth to Witness mudra. And both Siddhartha Gautama, the original Buddha, who's also called Shakyamuni, he does this because he's calling the earth to witness his enlightenment. The medicine Buddha is also said to do this. Here you can see it better right here. See his little hand? His arm is right here. So that is the medicine Buddha in lotus position in the Calling the Earth to Witness mudra. Which means if that's the medicine Buddha, then this weird little tile in the back of the manuscript is actually a cut of lapis lazuli gem or stone. Lapis lazuli on the edges, it has yellow in it, so that's why there's yellow here. And also all 8 auspicious symbols of Buddhism are actually hidden in the manuscript as well. Oh, just to give you an example of what the dakinis look like. Here we have, I think, an example of Tara, because she's got more definition here. And here is her tiara pointing all the way up, flowing ribbons, of course, in her hair, and holding an arm bangle. Here is a dakini with her staff, and they are often, dakinis are actually often depicted with staves. There are also wrathful versions. It doesn't mean they're evil, it means they are scaring away illusion. And that's why he's representing them here fighting. It's because he's trying to depict wrathful. And this is the dakini. So here you have the same tiara type thing going on here. The crown of skulls is going across this way. And then you can see the ribbon, of course, and the staff. If you look closer at some of the other pages, you actually see the crown all the way around, actually in the Voynich Manuscript on one of the tiaras. And this is the, oops, I don't know what I did. Okay, and this is, on the surface, it is Mary and Jesus. But again, this is also Tara and the medicine Buddha. This is olive oil. He's swaddled in olive oil. This is the Star of Suchness, also the Star of Bethlehem. And the blue, of course, is lapis lazuli light, connected to the double Vajra, which is being transmitted through the electuary, formed as a cross. And here are the seeds coming out. And Mary is the person, the entity that transmits it to the infant Jesus. Now, that fulfills the role of Tara. Tara is considered the mother of all Buddhas. So if Mary is the mother of Jesus and Jesus is being associated as the medicine Buddha here, then that means by proxy, Mary represents Tara, who is the ultimate dakini. So all of these things are starting to come into place quite well. And these weird structures that they are in are bumpa lids. A bumpa lid is a treasure vase specifically to hold water or tea. So these bumpa lids, or bumpas in general, even the Burmese version of sunoke, are the elixir containers. Not the electuary containers, but the elixir containers. And the elixirs are considered associated with the medicine Buddha, specifically, and Christ in the Voynich Manuscript. So these lids are upturned. And in Tibetan Buddhism, you make the tea by upturning the lid and putting the tea leaves on the inside and pouring water through it. And the water actually comes out the bottom and lands in the next section of the bumpa. And you can kind of see that in the Voynich Manuscript where there's water flowing out the bottom of it. That's what he's representing. So here you have the star of suchness, the star of the medicine Buddha, right? The Vajra represents the diamond path, right, of suchness. So that's why there's this linking here. Let's see. We'll talk about Kala Chakra itself, which is what this entire manuscript is about. I don't know why I typed that. I should have typed it. Okay. I hate that it takes forever to search something. Goodness gracious. Okay. I appreciate your patience trying to get this to work here. So while we wait, here we have the 8 auspicious symbols of Buddhism. This is the golden banner. This is the conch shell, which he's using it both to blow into as a trumpet, but also to scoop up the tea. Oh, finally. Took long enough. Alright, so these are the Tyrolean notes, which he uses almost exclusively, but not quite, on the Kala Chakra wheel. This is Preyas, leader go forward, Liber, book, tempos, timer, season, potens, powerful, mighty, strong, potent. This is ad hoc or ab his. This is septus. So the zodiac section, right? Your birth date is only used to determine your fixed star, your rising star at the moment of your birth. And that is all. Outside of the little stars that he draws to represent the day to associate with the folio-osis, that's all that is. It's not zodiacal astrology. It's not Western astrology at all. So it says the seven which are with the same celestial wheel, indeed the seven being the birth star's essence. Indeed this they are, the celestial sphere's elixir, whose essence is as that of the elixirs in the celestial sphere, indeed the roundel or orbit. They are this elixir. From that this indeed they will be. They are the star's cures. They are the high, so the main hub of the entire system of Kalachakra. Okay, what this says. Mentions tempus lex. It says of this they are indeed the seven, such as the elixir folio that presides over the labor. Honestly, from my newest research, I was right. This is not such as in such as, but the seven of suchness. You'll see in other papers that I have. Of these they are indeed the seven of suchness, the elixir folio that presides over the labor. For the law of time with potency and power goes forth from this. So in Kalachakra, right, you have, it literally means wheel of time. Kala chakra, wheel of time, or circle of time. Okay, and here he's starting to discuss it, the law of time. He already talks about the wheels quite a bit. Of these, they are indeed the seven, such as the elixir folio. So it's no longer such as, but septis talis. Septis talis, the seven of suchness. So this may translate as the suchness of the elixir folio. In this context, suchness, or tathata, is the Tibetan Buddhist term denoting the true nature or ultimate reality of all phenomenon. So the true nature of the elixirs, okay, their essence is the reflection of the suchness of the seven medicine Buddhas, which is the source of truth and liberation. So Kalachakra's intrinsic power comes from this concept of suchness. So that is what he's talking about on this wheel. It is called the folio nones, the folio of the nones. Okay. In European healing practice, the nones is the 9th hour from dawn, and that is where you would do a lot of your preparations and things like that, because it's the most potent time period. So he's using the idea of nones to represent the backbone of Kalachakra in the text, which would make sense. I also talk about the ways in which the textual construction that he's doing in the manuscript. something that I find very interesting, and I want to pull on this thread, things about someone's life. And I'm wondering if maybe that might be a function that we're not seeing. So I'm going to definitely look into that in the upcoming months. Go ahead and in just a few minutes.